Zainab, granddaughter of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him and his family. One of the most important figures in Islamic history. It's still astonishing today how there are millions of Muslims who have never studied the biography of this great personality. In this documentary, I set out to explore the life of Zainab, granddaughter of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him and his family. Very few females evoke as much love and an outpour of emotion as she does. 1,400 years after she has died, she remains one of the most important females in Islamic history, and arguably one of the most important females in human history. Very few have highlighted the significance and the greatness of Zainab, عليها السلام. In a world today which is dominated by courses on gender studies and feminism and the importance of the female within society, this is a lady whose biography has to be discussed in depth. No doubt the most important figure in the religion of Islam is Zainab's grandfather, the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him and his family. And the holy household, known as the Ahl al-Bayt, are the most important house in the religion of Islam, the most important family. Zainab therefore grows up in the most important house, the house which in Medina was made up of the father who was known as the gate to the city of knowledge, and a mother who was known as the greatest of the ladies of paradise. And indeed you find that the young Zainab takes her father and her mother, and especially her grandfather, as a role model for her.
The inspiration was almost simplistic. I'd finished a book on Lady Fatima. A group of us academics in my own institute were lamenting the fact that Muslim academics were not writing about some of the great women of Islam, Salama, for example, Lady Khadija, and that each of us would take one of the women and write about her. But I was the only one who was actually serious, and so began a book and finished a book. None of the others did. And I decided that having dealt with Lady Fatima, I wouldn't mind continuing with that family, with her family, her holy family. And so I took Lady Zainab and tried to produce at least a fragmentary academic biography of a figure who I think is crucially important, but who's really difficult to write about. She's not well sourced, for example. Nonetheless, I produce what I think is, for Western English-speaking readership, perhaps not Muslim readership, a solid introduction to the life of this really extraordinary woman.
السيدة زينب عليها السلام دينيا في عقيدتنا نعتقد أنها تولت مقام الوصاية على الإمامة، ومقام الوصاية هو مقام عال جدا وضعه الله عز وجل لخاصة خلقه. ففي الفترة التي لم يستطع الإمام زين العابدين عليه السلام أن يؤدي ما عليه من مهام الإمامة، تولت السيدة عليها السلام كل تلك المهام وقامت بها خير قيام، فكانت تترجم الفقه الإسلامي إلى سلوك وإلى فكر يستطيع أن يواجه أكبر التحديات مثل يزيد بن معاوية. فمثلا الشريعة قالت بوجوب نطق الكلمة الحق، والسيدة نطقتها وعملت بالواجب، والشريعة وجهت بالمستحب من الأعمال كصلاة الليل، والسيدة زينب في ليلة العاشر أدت ذلك المستحب مع كل الضغط النفسي والاجتماعي الذي مورس تجاهها. والإسلام أمر بالحجاب، والسيدة زينب عليها السلام لم تسمح أبداً لتلك الفرقة الضالة دينياً وأخلاقياً أن تنال من عفتها وحشمتها وحجابها. فمع ما أوكل إليها من مهام حفظ أطفال الحسين وحفظ عيال الحسين وحفظ نساء الحسين، دلت الروايات على أن السيدة اعتنت بحجاب النساء واعتنت بجمع النساء، واعتنت بأن لا يقرب رجل من المعسكر الآخر إلى امرأة أو بنت من عيال الحسين. أضرب لكم مثال، نقرأ ما رواه السيد المقرم أعلى الله مقامه في كتاب مقتل الإمام الحسين أن السيدة الحوراء أمسكت بعمود ليلة 11 من محرم ووقفت على باب الخيمة تحرسها.
Tabari narrates from Imam Zain al-Abidin عليه السلام, on the evening of the day before my father was martyred, I was sitting and my aunt Zainab was tending to me when my father withdrew from his companions and retired to his own tent. Huway, the free man of Abu Dharr al-Ghifari, was with him, preparing and aligning his sword. My father was reciting these couplets: O time, away with you as a friend. How many dawns and sunsets you have had, at which your companions or seekers lay dead. Time will not be content with a substitute. The decision rests with the majestic one, and every living being will have to travel the path. He repeated this 2 or 3 times, and I understood it and realized his meaning. My tears choked me, but I forced them back and fought for calm. I knew that we were facing a great trial. My auntie Zainab also heard what I had heard. She is a woman, and women are tender-hearted and fearful. She could not contain her anguish. She leapt to her feet and went to his side, unveiled with her robe trailing on the ground, and cried, "Oh woe, I wish death would release me from life. Today it's as if my mother Fatima, my father Ali, my brother Hassan have died, O successor of those who have gone and refuge to those who remain." Imam al-Hussein عليه السلام looked at her and said, "O sister, may shaitan never take away your forbearance." She replied, "May my father and mother be your ransom. O Aba Abdullah, you are preparing for death. May I be sacrificed for you."
But the day the battle began, there's a transformation in Lady Zainab. She sails out onto the battlefield, confronts people, comforts people, and literally takes control of the Ahl Bayt and the survivors. So I call it an existential journey. Besides the physical journey, I think in Lady Zainab, and that for me is the important part of her character for us contemporary people, there's an existential journey where she reaches the point where she is what God always meant her to be. In the same way that Shariati can react about Fatima is Fatima, I think that Lady Zainab was always intended by God to be there by her brother's side. That was her supreme moment. It was the moment she was created for, in a sense. And I think that there's this existential journey as she becomes to realization and then submits to God, her brother and her own life, and changes immediately with that submission. Now again, this is my own reading of her life.
Tabari narrates the conversation of Sayyida Zainab with Umar bin Sa'ad. In the final moments of the life of Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam, Sayyida Zainab alayhi salam came out of the tent. She was saying, "May the skies fall down to the earth." Umar bin Sa'ad had come close to Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam. So she said to him, "O Umar ibn Sa'ad, will Abu Abdullah be killed while you look on?" The narrator says, "I can still see the tears of Umar soaking his cheeks and beard. Then he turned his face away from her." In the Irshad, Sayyida Zainab alayhi salam calls out to Umar bin Sa'ad, "Shame on you, O Umar. Will Abu Abdullah be killed while you look on?" Umar, in this narration, did not say anything in reply, so she shouted, "Woe be to you all! Is there not a Muslim amongst you?" None of them answered her.
امرأة يقتل أخوها الأكبر ويقتل أخوها الصغير المدلل لديها وهو العباس عليه السلام، ويقتل ولديها، ويقتل أولاد إخوتها، ويقتل أولاد عمها وعشيرتها، وتمر بكل تلك المحن. ولم يتوقف الموضوع عند القتل فقط، لا، وإنما يعني الإرهاب الأموي مارس أفظع الجرائم واقعاً. يعني ليس من السهل أن تقتل عزيزاً لإنسان وقريباً منه إلى هذه الدرجة وتضع رأسه على رمح أمامه وتجبره على النظر إليه.
The author of Tabaqat al-Kubra narrates the captives were brought before Ibn Ziyad. He asked, "Who is this woman?" They replied, "She is Zainab, the daughter of Ali ibn Abi Talib." He asked, "What did you think of what God did to your household, Zainab?" She replied, "Death was ordained for them." So they hastened to the places of their martyrdom, and soon God will gather us and you and them. He said, "Praise be to God who killed you and exposed your lies." She replied, "Rather, praise be to God who has honored us with Muhammad, peace be upon him and his family, and purified us a thorough purification." While many quote the sermon of Sayyidah Zainab alayhi salam in Sham, very few discuss the sermon of Sayyidah Zainab alayhi salam in Kufa. Shaykh al-Mufid within his Amali has the narration from Hadlam. He states, "I saw Zainab, the daughter of Ali, and I had never seen a modest lady more eloquent than her. It was as if she spoke with the tongue of the commander of the faithful. She gestured to the people to be quiet, and when breath settled and the voices grew silent, she said, 'All praise belongs to God. May He bless my father, the messenger of God. O people of Kufa, O people of hypocrisy and desertion, may your tears never dry, and may your lamentation never subside. Your example is no other than like she who unraveled her spun thread after it had become strong, by making your oaths no more than a means of deceiving one another. Indeed, are there any amongst you other than vain pretenders, with groveling hearts, strengthless when present, helpless against the enemy, breakers of oaths, and heedless of obligations? What an evil you have sent forth for yourselves, for which you have earned God's wrath, and for which you will languish in eternal chastisement. Do you weep? Yes, by God you should weep a great deal and laugh a little, for you have earned dishonor and disgrace, and you will never be able to wash off its stain, ever. You abandoned and then killed the offspring of the last of the prophets, the chief of the youths of the people of paradise, the refuge of the righteous amongst you, the sanctuary for your future, the signpost to your salvation, and the pathway to your success. What an evil load you bear.
أتدرون أي كبد لرسول الله فريتم؟ وأي دم له سفكتم؟ وأي حرمة له انتهكتم؟ وأي كريمة له أبرزتم؟ إلى آخر خطابها الشريف، وتحديها لابن مرجانة بكل صلابة نفسية حينما قال لها: أرأيت صنع الله بأخيك وأهل بيتي؟ قالت: ما رأيت إلا جميلة، هؤلاء قوم كتب الله عليهم القتل فبرزوا إلى مضاجعهم، يعني شجعان ما هبوا الموت، وسيجمع الله بينك وبينهم، أنت اللي محتمي بقصرك وحرسك، وسيجمع الله بينك وبينهم فتحاج وتخاصم، فانظر لمن الفلج، ثكلتك أمك يومئذ يا ابن مرجان.
Zainab's bravery is once again highlighted in the back and forth between Ibn Ziyad and her nephew, Imam Ali ibn al-Hussein. Ibn Ziyad turns to Ali ibn al-Hussein and asks, "Who is this?" He was told, "It is Ali, son of Hussein." He said, "Did God not kill Ali, son of Hussein?" Ali said to him, "I had a brother called Ali ibn al-Hussein, and he was killed by the people." Ibn Ziyad said again, "Rather, he was killed by God." Imam Zain al-Abidin replies by saying, "God takes the souls at the time of their death." Ibn Ziyad shouted, "You dare to reply to me in this manner? Take him away and strike his neck." But Zainab steps in, like she had to step in at every moment after Karbala. "O Ibn Ziyad, you have not left any one of us alive, so if you are determined to kill him, then kill me along with him." It was in and around this area, what today is known as Suq al-Hamidiyya, that the family of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, were taken as captives and paraded. In one narration, Imam al-Baqir alayhi salam said, "I asked my father, Imam Ali ibn al-Hussein alayhi salam, how he was taken to Yazid, and he said, I was taken on a lame and saddleless camel. The head of Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam was raised on a standard, and our women were behind me on barebacked mules. The guards were behind us and to our sides carrying spears. If any of us wept, they would hit our heads with the spears. In this manner, we arrived at Damascus, where a man announced, O people of Sham, observe the prisoners from an accursed household." The lines from Ziyarat al-Nahiya al-Muqaddasa echo until today. Your head was raised aloft on a spear, and your family were taken captive like slaves. They were bound in iron chains and mounted atop saddleless mounts. The heat of the midday sun burned their faces. They were driven across deserts and wastelands with their hands shackled to their necks and paraded in marketplaces.
An almighty confrontation takes place in the grounds of the Umayyad Mosque today and what was originally the Umayyad Palace. Ali's daughter, Muawiyah's son. Just when the Umayyads had thought that they had achieved the victory that they wanted to achieve and that they could now parade to the whole of the empire their strength, as well as what they perceived as being their right, all of a sudden, the Prophet Muhammad's granddaughter emerges with an almighty stand. Yazid had wanted to make a great display for ambassadors who had come from all over the empires at that time. The Roman ambassador was here. Members of the Christian and the Jewish faith were here. People had come from many different tribes. Leaders of tribes were sitting here as well. And they were often bemused, if not confused, when they would notice that the grandchildren of the man who brought the religion of Islam were now being paraded on the streets by a man who claimed to be his rightful successor. And so this particular confusion meant that some of them would begin to raise questions against Yazid publicly. Are these Muhammad's granddaughters? Isn't Muhammad the man who brought you the religion? Do you think we would have done this to Jesus's grandchildren? We wouldn't even have done this to the donkey that Jesus rode on. We still honor the prince from the very hoofs of that donkey. And it really is eerie when I walk around here and I think that one day there was a time when Zainab alayhi salam was paraded and in chains here, and that Yazid would sit here and his entourage would be around him, and it does not affect Zainab in the slightest. And that could possibly be because Zainab knew that while she had God, she was always going to be strong. And she delivers one of the most powerful sermons in the history of the religion of Islam. Those of you who haven't read this sermon, I really advise you, go online and type the sermon of Zainab alayha salam in the court of Yazid, Damascus, Syria, 61 AH.
لا تستغرب حينما تقرأ في التاريخ أنها حين غسلت عليها السلام بعد شهادتها كانت نحيلة الجسد جدا، والفترة الأخيرة من حياتها كانت تعاني كثيرا، تعاني أنواع من الآلام. لم يدعها النظام الأموي أبدا، بل مارس ضدها الإقصاء الجغرافي. فهي حينما رجعت إلى المدينة بدأت تحدث الناس بالفظائع والجرائم الأموية، وهذا أمر لم يرق للسلطة الأموية، فطردت عليها السلام. نعم، كما يروي أكثر من مصدر تاريخي تخطر، قرأت ما نقله العلامة المجلسي في البحار وبحديث صحيح السند، وما ذكره تاريخ ابن أبي الفداء أيضا، وما ذكره السيد القزويني على الله مقام في كتابه في زينب من المهدي إلى اللحد. أكد الجميع أنها مورس الإقصاء ضده، وأجبرتها السلطات على مغادرة المدينة المنورة والسفر إلى مصر. ثم بعد ذلك أيضا كان لها تأثير كبير على حركة شيعة أهل البيت والتشيع في مصر. استطاعت أن تدفع بالجماهير إلى معرفة علي بن أبي طالب ومعرفة ما حصل مع الحسين عليه السلام، حيث أنها الراوية الرسمية لواقعة كربلاء وما حصل في كربلاء، فأيضا هيجت الرأي العام في مصر. نعم، واضطرت السلطات أيضا إلى إقصائها. ومن هنا تحديدا أتصور أنه وقع الاشتباه في أن مرقدها في مصر. نجد كثير من الفجوات التاريخية في تاريخ أهل البيت، وكثير من المحطات في حياتهم لم تروى لنا، ولكن متابعة سير الأحداث والتحقيق يفضي إلى نتيجة، فأن وجودها في الشام كان أن السلطة الأموية اعتبرت أن فرض حصار على زينب بنت علي عليه السلام سيؤدي إلى تهدئة الرأي العام بعد مقتل الحسين عليه السلام، لأن مقتل الإمام كان واقعة كبرى، ويزيد خاف جدا من أن يؤثر قتل الإمام في الرأي العام، فحوصرت السيدة الحورة وانتهى بها المطاف في الشام.
السيدة زينب أم العواجز، أم الأيتام، أم الحنان، عقيلة بني هاشم، الهاشمية القرشية، جدها رسول الله، أبوها الإمام عليه، أخواتها السبطين الحسن والحسين، والحسين مات في كربلاء وشهيد كربلاء. أنا قلت لك بيني وبين ربنا ما تطلب حاجة من ربنا قدام الست إلا لما ربنا بيديها لك. كرامتها كتيرة قوي، كلنا بنحبها واحنا عايشين بكرامتها هنا كلنا. شعب مصر كله عايش بكرامة الست.
كرامة ماما زينب.
والله كفاية الكورونا ما هياش عندنا في جميع البلاد ما عدا عندنا. بنغيظكم وربنا الكورونا ما عندنا.
Most of us would associate Sayyida Zainab alayhi salam's last year in this world with Sham. And that's where I would say the majority of the Shia community would go to visit Sayyida Zainab alayhi salam. I'm sure every human being will agree that Zainab's biography provides them with many examples of how to remain firm in the face of adversity, trials, and tribulations. There are many Muslims and non-Muslims alike who have taken great females as their role models. Maybe now they could add one more. ISIS tried their hardest to destroy the lives of many human beings and to destroy human heritage and to destroy the lessons from great exemplars in human history. But they couldn't, because there are certain human beings who remain mountains of strength. And of the greatest of them is the mountain of strength behind me, the mountain of patience, the mountain of bravery, and the mountain of valor. She told Yazid, however hard you try, you'll never obliterate our love and our memory from the hearts of the people. And I'm a witness to that. For surrounding her shrine, there continue to be many who call out, here we are, O Zainab.
أقول السلام على سيدتي عقيلة الطالبيين وعمتي زينب. السلام على حوراء آل محمد يوم ولدت ويوم استشهدت ويوم تبعث حية مع أمها فاطمة عليه السلام. لا حرمنا الله شفاعتها يوم الورود وجعلنا الله من السائرين على نهجها.